The Day the Earth Stood Still. Introduction. They say that when Chuck Norris was born, the only person who cried was the doctor, because you never slapped Chuck Norris. But on March 19th, 2026, it was the world that wept. The passing of Carlos Ray Chuck Norris at the age of 86, at a serene home in Kauai, Hawaii, didn't just mark the end of an era for action cinema. It felt like a glitch in the matrix of our collective childhood. For decades, we believed Chuck Norris was the only man who could slam a revolving door or count to infinity, twice. But as we face the reality of his departure, we are forced to look at the man behind the myth. Today, we're diving deep into the final days of a legend, combining the heartfelt memories of his last co-stars with the controversial legacy he leaves behind in a changing Hollywood. Zombie Plane and the Vanilla Ice Connection. While most 86-year-olds are enjoying a quiet retirement, Chuck was busy fighting the undead. His final project, the action comedy Zombie Plane, is set to be his parting gift to the fans. In this film, Norris plays Commander Chuck Norris, a man so tough he recruits celebrities into a secret government agency. His primary co-star, 90s icon Vanilla Ice, recently shared a side of Chuck the cameras rarely caught. Speaking to Fox News, Vanilla Ice emphasized that Chuck wasn't just Hollywood fluff. On the set of Zombie Plane, there were no stunt doubles for the legend's presence. "He's an American hero," Ice remarked. "People see the memes and they laugh, but when you're standing there and he looks you in the eye, you realize the strength is real. It's disciplined. It's authentic. It's a reminder of a classic Chuck Norris fact. Chuck Norris doesn't sleep. He waits." And according to those on set, even in his 80s, Chuck was always waiting, always ready, and always the most disciplined person in the room. The Variety controversy, a hero out of time? However, not everyone is offering a simple eulogy. Variety recently published a perspective that has ignited a firestorm across the industry. Their analysis suggests that Chuck Norris's legacy is complicated by his political stances and the very nature of his lone wolf characters. The article argues that the American might Norris represented, the silent, stoic vigilante who shoots first and asks questions never, might not have a place in the modern cultural landscape. They labeled his brand of cinema as propaganda, suggesting that his roles in Walker, Texas Ranger, glorified a type of justice that today's society is increasingly skeptical of. To Variety, Chuck Norris was a poster boy for American exceptionalism, in a way that feels dangerous to some modern critics. They ask, can we still celebrate the hero who breaks all the rules to get the job done? The myth versus the criticism. The internet, of course, had its own way of responding to the Variety critique. To millions of fans, trying to cancel Chuck Norris is like trying to divide by zero. It's mathematically impossible. The fans argue that Norris didn't represent politics, he represented values. Courage, individual responsibility, and the protection of those who cannot protect themselves. They point to his Kickstart Kids Foundation, which has helped over 100,000 at-risk youth stay out of gangs through martial arts. As the saying goes, Chuck Norris once kicked a horse in the chin. Its descendants are now known as giraffes. This humor reflects a deeper truth. Chuck's impact on the world was so massive that it changed the landscape of pop culture forever. You can critique the films, but you cannot ignore the footprint he left. The evolution of a warrior. To understand the man, you have to go back to the beginning. Before the movies, before the memes, there was a skinny, shy kid in the U.S. Air Force Station in South Korea. That's where he discovered Tang Soo Do. He didn't become a champion because he was lucky. He became a 6-time undefeated world professional middleweight karate champion because he was relentless. This is the man Vanilla Ice saw on the set of Zombie Plane. A man who lived by a code. Fact. Chuck Norris's pulse is measured on the Richter scale. Fact. Chuck Norris can ignite a fire by rubbing 2 ice cubes together. These jokes exist because Chuck Norris was the closest thing we had to a real-life superhero. He was the bridge between the grit of the 1970s and the digital humor of the 2000s. The final roundhouse kick. As we look forward to the release of Zombie Plane, the debate will likely continue. Some will see a relic of a bygone era, while others, like Vanilla Ice, will see a mentor and a true American badass. But perhaps the best way to remember him is through his own humility. He once said he didn't mind the memes because they kept him relevant to a new generation. He knew that the facts weren't about him. They were about the idea of someone who never gives up. In the end, Chuck Norris didn't die. Death was just too afraid to tell him he was scheduled. The final fact: when the bogeyman goes to sleep at night, he checks his closet for Chuck Norris. Today, the closet is empty and the world feels a little more vulnerable. But as long as there's a kid starting their first karate class or a fan watching a Walker rerun, the commander is still on duty. Rest in peace, Chuck. You didn't just live a life, you conquered it.